All right, now with us on Tennis Channel Inside In, delighted to talk to her again. Was a premier player, now one of the best voices on Tennis Channel, crushing her play-by-play role. It's WTA Finals time. Chanda Rubin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here, as always.
Yeah, it's a fun time, right? The season just sometimes can drag on. Sometimes we have tournaments all around the world, but when we get to the finals time, it's the best eight. It's a culmination of a great year, and I wanted to start too, Chanda, with what a difference a year makes. We spoke last year at the WTA Finals, different location, different circumstances for a lot of players. Still a lot of the same faces, which is how it tends to be, but each player kind of in a different role, a different path in their career.
It's very different, especially for a couple of players that were debutantes at this year's finals, like Jasmine Paolini and Zheng Qinwen. It's been a bit of a revelation to see the years that they have had, and this is the reward for it. And of course, you're playing for this big title. You're playing for a lot of points. You're playing for a lot of prize money. And to just have the opportunity against the very best at the end of the year, it's what you fight for. So it's a lot of fun to watch how they handle that the first time around, and then to see some of the players that are veterans, so to speak, that can still struggle. These are big opportunities, and these are the opportunities you want to get the most.
Yeah, a lot to break down in the field. It's a unique system with the round-robin format. Yeah, I think like every year, it's kind of like playoffs in any sport. You're going to have a lot of the same teams there, but every year you're not going to have the same field. So new faces, how they handle it. Well, even though she lost today, the story of women's tennis has been Aryna Sabalenka this year. She clinched the year-end number one. Up until today's match, which I put in a separate basket, given that she already clinched in this unique format, she had gone, I think, 32 out of 33 sets won at the big hard court tournaments. So Aussie Open champion, U.S. Open champion, and this tournament only dropping one set. So it's just been remarkable. She's great, like all these players are on pretty much every surface, but on hard courts, it's a special kind of warrior champion.
It is. And, she's so comfortable on the hard courts. She gets so much traction in terms of her movement where she can step in and be on balance more often. And on a court like this, she still has time. Sometimes she makes her own time because she's rushing her opponent. So I think, her game is well suited to every surface, but especially the hard courts where it can be difficult to dictate against her. Elena Rybakina was able to do so. She's one of the few players that can do it consistently.
There's something to be said. Well, there's two things with Sabalenka, because we all knew how good and how special she was as a talent and a ball striker. One, the mentality and the ability to weather storms and not unravel, however you want to put it. It's remarkable, the stride she's made, even in the match against Jasmine Paolini, who fights like heck, and it's crazy. Any moments of uncertainty when it wasn't going well, she just regathered herself, played big points. That's new. The other thing is, and you could speak to this, she's been open about adding that drop shot, adding a weapon to your game, the courage it takes, and really kind of the uncertainty of I'm going to try to get better at something I'm not good at. To have the guts to do that and to be able to execute it is just remarkable.
Yeah, at this level in the sport, if you're not working on improving, you're actually moving backwards, because everybody else is, adding little things to their game. They're gaining more experience. They are getting better. Yeah. And when you've got the target on your back, you're at the top of the game, as Aryna Sabalenka has been consistently. You've got to have that mindset. So that's one of the real strengths of her game. I also think sometimes we see her win a match and we'll look at the score and we'll think, oh, it was 2 sets. She didn't really have any real problems, like against Paolini. Well, she actually faced a couple of set points. She played through some adversity. She found a way to keep hitting through those type moments. And that's another mark of a player at the top who is looking not just to defend, but they are trying to get better, and they are trying, to actually keep progressing. So I think a couple of reasons why she's played consistently at this level.
Right. We talked about it when we were breaking down the men's game. Like, you're not chasing like Alcaraz or Sinner like a finite level, because they're getting better too. So you got to keep progressing and keep chasing. Well, it's remarkable. And you said Rybakina beat her today. I would just ask you this question with Sabalenka. Is power, I mean, you have to have otherworldly power, but ways to beat her, it's getting difficult. We've seen Coco do it, Egon, Clay, Rybakina with power, but ways to beat her, what, if anything, out there is there for the field to kind of look at?
I think it depends on your style of game. Somebody like Rybakina who can go toe-to-toe on the serve, who can go toe-to-toe from the ground. We saw Rybakina today opening up the court, using the angles, started serving beautifully, and didn't have any let-ups. Even though she dropped serve towards the end of the second set, it was Sabalenka raising her level and having to play that kind of tennis. So I think down the stretch, when Sabalenka dipped just a bit, Rybakina was able to stay really, really tight and run away with that third set. So I think that's number one. When Sabalenka may have a dip or two, you've got to be ready to capitalize. And I think depending on your style, if you are more of a counterpuncher or you're a player that's more strategic, like say a Paolini, you've got to look for those opportunities, get those balls back, take the body blows, and then look for your opportunities. So there's multiple ways you can play against a player like Sabalenka, but it's just extremely tough to do it consistently for 2 out of 3 sets to get the best of her. And some players have done it, but it's a tough task.
Certainly is a tough task. Also, I think we'd both grade Rybakina's return was very, very well done considering she hasn't played. This is a very tough field to jump into. Just welcome back to tennis. Here's the other 7 best players in the world. But good to see her back. I think when the rush shakes off and she gets back into a groove now, working with Goran Ivanisevic, we're going to see even more success.
I think so. I think anytime as a player you have a new start, you've got kind of a fresh voice, there's an excitement there to kind of see where this new path takes you, and you have a little more motivation. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that little change, that little shift to just kind of re-energize you. So I think for Rybakina, that certainly can be the case. Ivanisevic, he's such a good tennis mind, not only being a great player in his own right, but his understanding now of how to help other great players play their best. We've seen that in the players he's worked with so far. And I think for Rybakina, some of the things that they have in common in terms of their game styles, I think that can help her. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing the dividends that partnership brings.
We've got some new coaching dynamics and partnerships that are all pretty exciting. Well, a couple of them in the next match I want to talk to. So Coco Gauff defeats Iga Swiatek in a match you called with Tracy Austin, just the second win in 13 tries for Coco. So a big moment. Now both these players have new coaches, Coco with Matt Daly, Iga with Wim Fissette. But for Coco's perspective, just notching any win over Iga is going to be a big deal, proving that you can do it. I thought, and you can expand on this, but I thought she played tactically very smart. She was patient. And the one thing I keep coming back to, Chanda, is it can be really hard to switch your style up when your best game, especially when you're as talented as Coco, might not work against Iga. Maybe being more aggressive, which might not be naturally her comfort zone, helped her in this match. I thought it was a very mature performance, and she stepped outside her comfort zone to beat a very talented player.
Yeah, I think, you look at both of those players, Gauff and Swiatek, they're still very young. Gauff 20, Swiatek 23. They, cross paths in juniors playing each other. So there is some history there. But at the tour level, having played Swiatek so many times, come up on the losing end, at a certain point you start figuring out that you've got to do something a little different. And I think for Gauff, it wasn't a question of should I, it was a question of I need to do it. Let me just get it done under pressure and put my best foot forward. And I think she's been building to that. The win she got over Swiatek last summer was huge. That one to me was sort of a seismic shift. And it told Gauff that she should believe that she can do it. And you combine that with the major win at the U.S. Open under her belt. And we saw her come out in these finals against Swiatek, and she took it to her. The forehand stepping in, that's the type of mindset you have to have with the extreme grips, with how well Gauff moves defensively. If you can get that offensive moving down, which she did beautifully, I think that was the way for her to go toe-to-toe. And realizing it and doing it are two separate things, but she was able to get it done under pressure, and that is extremely difficult against Iga Swiatek.
The serve held up for her, which has been much maligned and scrutinized, and the forehand has had its ups and downs. She didn't shy away from it, which is another big part. Now 20 top 10 wins, so she's doing it against big players, but the Iga won more mentally too. You're right. Last year, getting the first win, the only player that has that sizable win-loss record against her. So going forward, and look, you're in the top 3, top 4. You want to win majors. Iga's going to be there, so it's not like you're going to avoid her.
But she came out Gauff, and she was killing the ball. Okay, she added MPHs not only on the backhand but on the forehand side as well. She was out hitting Iga Swiatek, and so again, that's just a match that builds your confidence along with getting the win and this opportunity in the semifinals.
She thrives on momentum too. We've seen the most successes of her career happen getting some steam behind her. So going into next year, especially starting in Australia. It's going to be pretty good. For Iga, I know this is the beginning of a new partnership. I think she is, and rightly so, Chanda, playing the long game. I think this partnership with Facet's going to pay dividends. But what did you see from her? Not just that match, but the first match against Barbora Krejcikova. And again, is still very much alive to win this tournament. So still a lot of tennis left for her here potentially. But what have you seen from Iga in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I think her getting through that match against Krejcikova showed a lot. I mean, she was not playing great, was down a set and 3-love. I mean, it would have been easy to just say it's not my day and let the frustration overtake you. But she was able to dig in, and that's one of the things Swiatek does better maybe than any other player, and that's make adjustments mid-match. So that win, I think, was huge. You mentioned she still has a shot for the semifinals, so it's regrouping after this loss. I still don't think she's played her best tennis. She still looks a little bit rattled, a little uncertain. And remember, she also didn't play for a couple of months after the U.S. Open. So when you are out of competitive play and then all of a sudden you got to get back into this tournament where the best, other best 7 players apart from yourself are in the field, that can be a bit daunting. So we'll see how Iga comes up in this next match. But I think she still, for me, is one of those the best players mentally, and that's going to hold her in good stead as she plays through these pressure moments.
Yeah, not capsizing is probably it, because the level of her game we think will be at a different point in a couple months, proper off season. But yeah, staying in the fight. And I printed this out, my notes out before, so it looks like she's playing Kazakhina now that Pegula pulled out. So
yes,
tough for Jessie. I know this tournament can be tough for her. I also think it might be a little difficult to have the round robin format, and also, I mean, Chanda, coming back after a loss is such a weird thing for a tennis player to have to do. So it can be tough after you lose the first match to have another one in the same tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jessie Pegula, you look at her year, and it's been an interesting one. She also had a coaching change early in the year that she's actually settled into pretty nicely with Mark Merklin and Mark Knowles. And to get to her first major final, I mean, that's a huge emotional kind of output that it takes a moment to kind of to reset from it in a way. She made her 3rd WTA Finals, consecutive WTA Finals. She's been having a tremendously consistent career over the last 3 or 4 years now. So hopefully she can get healthy. She struggled with a little bit of that this year, and that's always, kind of that's always the fear a little bit when you're kind of settling into a space and you just want your body to be able to hold up. But you take the time, you've got a little bit of time in the off season, and then you build on this incredible year. So hopefully she can do that, but she is still one of the best ball strikers out there, and it'll be fun to see how she handles 2025.
Yeah, there's ups and downs in tennis. We know she had an unbelievable up recently, so we'll see where it goes. Still a lot of great tennis for her. More here on Tennis Channel Inside In with Chanda Rubin talking WTA Finals and other tennis storylines. Another player that booked her spot into the semifinals, Qinwen Zheng, wins a very impressive straightforward match against Jasmine Paolini and essentially a winner-take-all match for the semifinals. And Qinwen, I looked this up, 30 wins since July, has the gold medal, making a ton of runs, 30-5 record, 3 losses to Sabalenka, but she has been a different player the second half of this year, and really a different player since even she made that Australian Open final. Just impressive what she's done.
Yeah, again, with a player, there's always, I think, a little bit of settling in at a new ranking, in a new space. And for Zheng, I think that has been the case. And also, coming from China, such a populous country that had a great champion like Li Na, now you've got all these expectations. You're the next big thing. And just how you deal with that is just as important as how you play between the lines. And I think she's finding her way. She's managing to deal with her emotions. She talked about that, deal with some of the frustrations, and to come through in the match the way she did today against Paolini, I was very impressed. She played a big brand of tennis. She didn't hesitate, didn't doubt herself, and that could have been a tricky match. And she completely shut Paolini out of it. So she's got some real confidence going into the semifinals and can build on what has already been an immense year.
Right, that's exactly it. We talked about how much she fights and how much she battles out there, but this was a match where she said, I'm just not going to give you any air. I'm going to use my weapons and play big, impressive tennis. It's special. This isn't a fluke either. Like, we see players that maybe come and go in the finals, this is someone that's going to have a chair at the table for a while, it would seem.
I think so. I think when you look at her game, there's still things she can improve on that she's looking to work on, but she's got the weapons. That's the first thing you look at in any player. She's the biggest server out there, the most aces this season so far and still going. And you just look at how she's understanding the game and how to play at 22 years of age, still so much growth. The future is bright in terms of the WTA.
You're saying all these ages. I can't believe how young some of these players still are. 20 for Coco, 23 Iga, 22. Yeah, it's impressive. And even though Jasmine Paolini's singles season ends right now, she's still in the doubles tournament, only player to make both. But still just I'm impressed beyond belief that she got here. The longest odds, I think it's safe to say, of any of the players that were here preseason to get to this point. Yeah. It's incredible stuff, what she gives up in size and strength. She makes up with heart and the ability to dig deep. And as we said, have a plan B. Even the Sabalenka match, she was able to switch things up and make it competitive. So just very, very impressed with the consummate professionalism and the game that Paolini has.
Yeah, if you think about the preseason last year, Paolini was about 30 in the world, which was her career high up to that point. Had been on tour for 10 years plus. And so to have this kind of breakthrough year at, almost 28 years of age now is phenomenal. I mean, we see Jessie Pegula, who also has found some of her best tennis later in her career. She had some injuries early on. I think for Paolini, it was the belief and seeing that she could play with the best players in the world and just not shutting the door on the possibilities. That's the only way you get to two major finals back to back on clay and then on grass. I mean, it's incredible when we really break down what she's been able to do. And then you mentioned being able to also win these big titles, including a gold medal in doubles. So it's been a dream year for Paolini, and her smile, her energy, it's infectious. She's fun to watch. And I'm also looking forward to seeing how her 2025 goes as well.
She's a fan favorite now too, because of a lot of the last things you just said, smile, personality, and how she plays out there. It's fun. And can't forget about Barbora Krejcikova, still alive in the semifinal race, needs a little bit of help, but still has a chance. And to get here, to win Wimbledon, two majors, all the double success, and again, to play a style, Chanda, that's unique, that's different, and it frustrates the opponents out there.
I got to say, I love Barbora Krejcikova's game. I always have. She's such a smooth customer out there. She addresses the ball so beautifully in terms of the ball staying on the strings as long as possible through the contact point. It looks effortless, but she can produce surprising power with it. And then you throw in her abilities in all the areas of the court, how smooth she is up at the net, the hands, obviously the doubles skill set that she has had for nearly a decade, all of that put together, and it just makes for an interesting brand of tennis, especially when she comes up against these different styles. So I'm happy to see her playing this kind of tennis, making it to the tour finals. Hopefully she can remain healthy. That's been the challenge for her, and it's so tough when you start getting these niggling injuries that just don't allow you to play your best tennis consistently. But here she is, still in the mix with a chance to be in the semifinals.
It's crazy, finding a way to play your best tennis when it matters most. She's a big game player, and we've seen it time and time again. Well, the last note on the finals, and I think it's good to say, we've talked about all these players, but the WTA has a good group of ladies leading the charge. I know we talk about eras and people compare styles of play, but it's a good group at the top, and I think the game, in a cliche way of saying it, is in good hands.
I like that as well.
So, and also wanted to mention too, doubles, shout out Siniakova, 4 times in 5 years being the #1 doubles player in the world. That is just, it's very impressive, someone that just keeps winning. So want to give her a shout out as well. On the men's side, before we wrap it up with Chanda Rubin, we did have Paris last week. It was the hometown guy getting to the final. Ugo Humbert losing to Alexander Zverev. For Zverev, he's up to #2. He wins very, very effortlessly in the final and plays an exciting brand of tennis to do so. And just, I'd say almost quietly having a really good year, getting to #2 and sticking his hat in the race as a player in 2025 to keep watching.
Yeah, I mean, if you can call being 2 in the world quiet, this is a guy who is so good on, pretty much all the surfaces, but such a beautiful player from the ground. He's got all the tools, the serve. the movement that he has at his height, the type of athletic player he is. And he is a player, we say this sometimes and it sounds a little bit cliche, but he can literally go toe to toe with anybody. You know, he is a dangerous guy against every single style of play. And I think it's why we have seen him make such a comeback after a horrific injury where, you know, a lot of players would have still been floundering a bit, would have struggled to get back to the top of the game. He seems to have shaken it off so impressively. And he's a winner a couple of times at the Tour Finals, so you've got to like his chances against a couple of these younger guys. Of course, we're looking at Sinner and we're looking at Alcaraz, but Zverev, I think at times, you know, his ego is saying, look, don't count me out. Don't overlook me, or do it at your own peril.
Right, and I really like the quote. It was a very, very positive one for tennis players, right? Letting the results come and focusing on the improvements. Because you know how it works, pro tennis, rankings, everything that's at stake. It can be very tough to keep up. But he's saying, look, I'm just trying to be a better player. What'll happen, the winning will happen if I get better. And it's a nice long form approach.
Yeah, I think you've got to find ways to take pressure off of yourself as a player, especially when you've been out there as long as Zverev has. He's gotten the experience, looking for that first major title with how he plays, how big his game is. You figure he should absolutely win a major title before he is done. The question is when. It's not easy to play 7 matches, you know, over a 2-week period against different opponents and manage the ups and downs. So, you know, if he can release that kind of pressure and find a way to play his best tennis on these big stages, I think it's only a matter of time.
We saw the finalists that didn't go well in the match, but Ugo Humbert getting there. He is just, the French crowd lifting him was special and fun to see. But he also, regardless of whether he's playing in France or not, that's a good indoor hardcourt player and somebody who's potential I wanted to ask you about. This seems like he's got top 10 potential, in my opinion, if he can keep it together.
He's a shot maker, Humbert, and, you know, he's got so much on his racket, as we would say. You know, he can play from the ground, he can come in, he's got a dynamic game, and he plays a really explosive brand of tennis. Now, I think for him, he's another player that, you know, the belief and being able to consistently put it together, that takes just another level. And I certainly think he can play at that level, consistency, but that's where it is for Humbert. Can you put it together consistently in these big matches, you know, week in and week out more often? I think that's going to be the key for him as well.
So interesting too. We talk about the French tennis generation kind of going away. They had a great run, and now we were wondering what's going to happen. You got Arthur Fils, you got Ugo Humbert, so the cupboard's not bare in France on the men's side.
Petchy Pericard. I mean, this guy is a big kid, and
like, where did he come
so
from?
young. I mean, it's incredible. You know, the future is bright, certainly for French tennis as well in the men's side.
Crazy stuff there. Well, and then the ATP Finals, the field is set. Just want to mention too, Novak Djokovic pulls out. I think we all were expecting it. The only news in the statement was that he did reference the injury. He still was wearing that sleeve. So I think for Djokovic's side, it's not really news. We want to see him healthy and back on court, but you know, not playing a tournament he defended, not being in the ATP Finals. No Big Three members here for the first time in 23 years is kind of a seismic shift. It is.
It is a moment, you know, to make note of, and it's an opportunity for these other guys who have worked hard all year round and have this opportunity. And certainly for Djokovic, you can kind of understand at this stage of his career, he also has to play kind of the intermediate to long game, looking forward, you know, to next season and, you know, doing well at the majors. He's talked about that as the primary goal. So you've got to be smart at this stage. And I think he has been. I mean, it's incredible the level he was able to get back to this season after some injuries. So with Djokovic, you just like to see him play, if he can play his best tennis for a little while longer and really push these guys, create a few more stars out there.
Yeah, it's like one of his worst years. Oh, what a terrible year. Gold medal, Wimbledon final, top 5, right? Yeah, just awful.
It's a different level of terrible, right?
It's insane. We would all be lucky enough to keep that terrible. But yeah, the field is set now. So you have Alcaraz, Sinner, Zverev, Medvedev. Fritz was in, although he's back to no longer blonde hair. That was a short run.
Are we sad to see that go?
I don't know if sad's the right word. But he's in. And then the final 3 who got spots officially didn't have to play for it after Djokovic pulls out: Casper Ruud, Alex de Minaur, and Andre Rublev. So for those 3 at the back end, too, a huge achievement. Rublev's been there a few times, Ruud as well. And de Minaur was thrilled. You saw the reaction online. Just a tremendous honor to make these finals.
Yeah, making it his debut ATP Finals. And, it highlights the year that you've had. I mean, when you've had a good year, when you have surpassed maybe what you've done in past seasons, but to make the year-end championships, to kind of have it official, that lets you are in another sort of class. And the opportunity there is tremendous. And de Minaur, he's such a consummate professional. And so you like to see a guy like that get his rewards.
Especially coming off of the injury, like at Wimbledon, how it went down, not just to come back, but to come back and do well enough to make the final is very special. So I'm excited. This is like a new era where, this is a seismic shift. We talk about the big three era, and Rafa's about to retire at the Davis Cup, but another tour that you have the two guys at the top. Alcaraz Center won all the majors, but it's not gimmies every year. The rest of the field is motivated to keep pushing.
Absolutely. And, we like, just a little bit of push and pull. We like to kind of have, some of the rivalries at the top, and maybe, a few different iterations of rivalries as well. And for the most part, you want to see those best guys healthy and able to play against each other more often. And I think we are seeing that, and it's been fun to watch this budding rivalry between Sinner and Alcaraz, and we look forward to more years. They also looking to stay healthy. That's always the key, but looking forward to it.
Well, Chanda Rubin, this has been a blast. Always appreciate our chats here on the podcast. And again, congrats on all the great work you've done. It's not easy to switch roles, but the play-by-play stuff, I'm sure it's fun calling matches, being in a different chair, but it's been fun to listen to, and you've done a tremendous job.
It's been a blast. I've enjoyed it. I enjoy working with other analysts, other former players, so it puts me in a little different role, and it challenges me as well. So, we all got to keep improving, got to keep getting better, and of course, I'm always happy to sit down and talk to you.
It's like the tennis player thing. We're not always, you can't stay stagnant. You always got to get better.
You're not improving, you're getting passed by.
Of course. Chanda Rubin, you're always welcome on Tennis Channel Inside, and it was a blast. Can't wait to chat next time.
That's a pleasure.